Most women don't lose power by saying yes. They lose it by adjusting their standards to keep someone comfortable. When a woman prioritizes emotional comfort over self-respect, it rarely feels like a mistake. It feels like peacekeeping. It feels like maturity. It feels like choosing harmony over conflict. She tells herself that staying calm, understanding, and emotionally accommodating is the smarter path, that creating discomfort will only complicate things, that preserving connection matters more than standing firm in the moment. But every time comfort is chosen at the expense of self-respect, a quiet lesson is taught to the people around her. People learn what they can do, not from what is said, but from what is tolerated. When a woman softens her standards to keep the atmosphere pleasant, she teaches others that her limits are flexible under pressure, that if tension appears, she will be the one to relieve it, that her discomfort is less important than emotional ease. Over time, this creates a dynamic where her boundaries exist in theory but dissolve in practice. Emotional comfort often shows up as avoiding difficult conversations, letting small disrespect slide, laughing things off that don't feel right, staying silent when a line is crossed, not because she didn't notice, but because addressing it would create awkwardness. And awkwardness feels heavier in the moment than long-term erosion of respect. So she chooses the lighter burden now, unaware that it compounds later. Self-respect is not loud or aggressive. It doesn't need confrontation every time something feels off. But it does require alignment between inner standards and outward behavior. When a woman feels disrespected but responds with accommodation, the disconnect is felt not just by her, but by others. They sense the gap between what she feels and what she allows, and gaps invite testing. Testing doesn't always look malicious. It often looks casual. A late reply here, a dismissive comment there, a boundary pushed slightly further than before. When these moments are met with emotional smoothing instead of correction, the tests continue. Not because the other person is cruel, but because no resistance was met. Limits that are never reinforced stop being limits. Prioritizing emotional comfort often comes from empathy. She understands why someone acted that way. She considers their stress, their past, their intentions. She extends grace. Empathy itself is not the problem. The problem is empathy without self-protection. When understanding replaces standards, self-respect quietly exits the dynamic. The moment a woman starts thinking it's not worth the tension, she has already placed comfort above dignity. Tension is temporary. Loss of authority is not. Authority doesn't come from control. It comes from consistency, from knowing that when something crosses a line, there will be a shift. Silence, distance, change. When nothing changes, authority weakens. People adjust their behavior based on what creates discomfort for them. If crossing a boundary creates no discomfort, there is no incentive to stop. When a woman absorbs discomfort internally so others don't feel it externally, she carries the entire weight of the dynamic alone. That imbalance becomes visible over time. She becomes the one managing emotions, the one maintaining peace, the one adapting. Emotional comfort is seductive because it provides immediate relief. The conversation stays pleasant. The relationship continues. The moment passes. But self-respect operates on a longer timeline. It asks, what does this teach? What pattern am I reinforcing? What am I agreeing to without saying yes? When those questions are ignored repeatedly, power leaks slowly, not dramatically. A woman who prioritizes comfort may begin to feel unseen or undervalued without knowing why. She gave so much understanding, so much patience, so much grace. Yet something feels off. That feeling comes from the internal awareness that she has been loyal to the connection but not to herself. And people tend to respect those who respect themselves, not those who sacrifice themselves quietly. Testing intensifies when boundaries are emotional instead of behavioral. Feeling hurt but acting agreeable sends a mixed signal. The other person feels the tension but sees no consequence. This creates confusion, not correction. Over time, confusion turns into disregard, not intentional, but habitual. Self-respect creates a subtle firmness. It doesn't require explanation. It requires alignment. When behavior crosses a line, energy shifts. Availability changes. Engagement reduces. This shift creates a mild discomfort that prompts reflection. Without it, behavior continues unchanged. Many women fear that choosing self-respect will make them seem cold, difficult, or unkind. But self-respect is not cruelty, it is clarity. It allows others to know where they stand. Emotional comfort without clarity creates uncertainty. People don't know what truly matters to her because everything appears acceptable. When comfort is always prioritized, limits become invisible. Invisible limits cannot protect. They cannot guide behavior. They cannot command respect. They only create internal frustration. And frustration, when unexpressed through action, turns inward. Power does not come from emotional endurance. It comes from discernment, knowing when peace is genuine and when it is purchased at too high a cost, knowing when calm is alignment and when it is avoidance. A woman who constantly chooses comfort may look peaceful on the outside while slowly losing authority on the inside. Testing continues until a line is met. If no line appears, the testing becomes the relationship. Not because someone intends harm, but because humans respond to structure. Self-respect provides structure. Comfort without structure creates drift. A woman who honors self-respect understands that temporary discomfort can protect long-term dignity, that addressing small issues early prevents large ones later, that her inner unease is information, not inconvenience. When she listens to it and acts accordingly, others adjust naturally. Prioritizing self-respect does not mean constant confrontation. It means consistency. It means that behavior and access are linked, that emotional availability is not unconditional, that peace is not maintained at the cost of self-abandonment. The moment a woman stops cushioning disrespect to preserve comfort, something shifts. Conversations become more intentional. Behavior becomes more measured. Some people step back, others step up. The testing slows because the limits become visible. Self-respect doesn't demand, it demonstrates. It doesn't threaten, it responds. When comfort is no longer the highest priority, standards quietly take its place. And standards teach far more effectively than explanations, apologies, or emotional labor ever could. When a woman constantly adjusts her standards to keep a connection alive, it rarely feels like compromise at first. It feels flexible. It feels loving. It feels like giving people room to grow. She tells herself that relationships require adaptation, that no one is perfect, that holding firm expectations will push others away. So she bends slightly, then again, and again. Each adjustment seems small, almost invisible, but together they quietly dismantle her authority. Standards are not rules imposed on others. They are reflections of what a woman believes she deserves. When those standards shift every time someone applies pressure, the message becomes clear, even if unspoken. Her needs are secondary. Her expectations are optional. Her limits depend on how much she wants the connection to survive. People don't need to be told this. They feel it. Authority comes from predictability. When a woman's standards remain stable, others know where the line is. When standards move, the line disappears. Without a line, there is nothing to respect. Only preferences that can be negotiated away with enough emotion, distance, or inconsistency. Adjusting standards often starts with justifications. He's busy. She didn't mean it like that. It's just a phase. Each explanation softens the expectation. Each excuse lowers the requirement for behavior. Over time, what once would have been unacceptable becomes normal. Not because it feels right, but because it feels familiar. Connection maintained through self-adjustment is fragile. It depends entirely on one person's willingness to shrink. The more she adjusts, the more responsibility she takes for the relationship's survival. The other person doesn't need to rise because she keeps lowering the bar. Authority cannot exist in a dynamic where only one side is adapting. When standards are adjusted repeatedly, resentment quietly replaces respect. She may not express it openly, but it shows up in tone, patience, and emotional fatigue. She gives more while feeling valued less. And resentment is the body's signal that a boundary has been crossed too many times without reinforcement. People sense when standards are flexible. They may not consciously exploit it, but they unconsciously test it. They take longer to respond. They put in less effort. They assume forgiveness will arrive before accountability, not because they are malicious, but because behavior adjusts to the environment it's allowed in. Authority is lost not through one big compromise, but through many small ones. Each time a woman accepts less than what aligns with her values, she trains others to do the same. The connection continues, but the power dynamic shifts. She becomes the one hoping, waiting, adjusting. Authority never belongs to the person who is always adjusting. Standards adjusted for connection also distort self-perception. She begins to question whether her needs were ever reasonable, whether expecting consistency was asking too much, whether wanting clarity was being demanding. This internal doubt weakens authority before anyone else even has the chance to challenge it. A woman with strong authority doesn't need to enforce standards aggressively. She lives them. When behavior falls below them, her response changes naturally. She pulls back. She disengages. She redirects her energy. When standards are constantly adjusted, there is no response left, only endurance. Keeping connection at all costs often comes from fear. Fear of loss. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. That fear quietly governs decisions. Standards are no longer chosen from self-worth, but from anxiety. And authority cannot exist where fear is making the decisions. People respect what costs them something to access. When connection remains available regardless of effort, behavior, or consistency, its value drops. This isn't cruelty. It's human psychology. Scarcity created through standards creates respect. Abundance without boundaries creates disregard. Adjusting standards teaches others that commitment is optional, that effort is negotiable, that presence is flexible. Over time, the dynamic becomes unbalanced. She invests emotionally. The other person drifts, and she compensates by adjusting even more, hoping the connection will stabilize. Authority requires the willingness to lose what does not meet the standard, not dramatically, not angrily, but calmly, quietly. When a woman cannot tolerate the possibility of loss, standards will always bend. And when standards bend, authority dissolves. Many women confuse adaptability with strength. True strength is selective adaptability, knowing what can change and what cannot. Values are not meant to be flexible. Standards rooted in self-respect are not obstacles to love, they are filters. When standards are adjusted too often, a woman becomes emotionally overextended. She gives explanations, she offers understanding, she compromises internally while presenting calm externally. The split drains energy, and drained energy cannot command authority. Authority is felt when actions and values align. When a woman's behavior reflects her standards consistently, others respond accordingly. When alignment breaks, confusion enters. Confusion enters. Confusion invites testing. Testing erodes respect. Some people stay only because standards keep lowering. When they are raised or restored, those people leave. That departure is not failure. It is correction. Connection that survives only through self-adjustment was never balanced. A woman who restores her standards may feel discomfort initially. Conversations may shift, distance may appear, but clarity follows. Authority returns not because she demanded it, but because she stopped negotiating her worth. Connection built on stable standards feels different. It is calmer, clearer, less anxious. There is no need to monitor behavior constantly because expectations are understood. Authority exists quietly, without explanation. Constant adjustment teaches others that her needs are flexible. Consistent standards teach others how to treat her. One erodes authority. The other builds it. When a woman stops adjusting herself to be chosen, something profound happens. She chooses herself first, and that choice reorganizes every dynamic around her.